Greetings, this is Kal Kat the Calcaster, and this is a review of mid-90s. It's a Jonah Hill movie where it's allegedly the mid-90s. It's slang and stories similar to Clerks and Kids, which came out in that time period and weren't period pieces, but now that it's 2018, it's a period piece. It's a sort of a mock documentary. It's not a comedy, though. It's a drama. It's not being billed as a comedy. This kind of movie, if it was out in the 90s, probably would be billed as a comedy and put on like DVD shelves, and they would say it's the funniest comedy ever. And it's like not. They would totally do that. They would mislabel it, and it would be like, the drama is on a par with the darkness of Kids, being compared to that. Some Gremlins and some of the other ones compared to that. But yeah, I saw part of their review, but I knew they would do that. There is a Nirvana song in it, but not. I don't think Alanis Morissette. Maybe briefly in the background, and not Green Day. I don't think there's any Green Day in it. There should have been. But yeah, there was one Nirvana song in it. The groups from the bands from the 90s. It's about a bunch of skater kids. And I stopped watching. I was watching the Stone Gremlins review. I just stopped about halfway through it, and they noted that they were never skaters. I wasn't either. I could not get on a skateboard. I'd immediately fall off. I wasn't one of those kids, and I wasn't growing up in the 90s. I was a senior in high school in '89, so a little too young to know any of that. I was in college when the '90s stuff came around, and the worry rock generation. What do I know? The beginning of the millennial generation was started as of '86 or so. So it was yeah. The movie was very similar to Superbad. It had that sort of, and he was in that. So. Yeah, if you're gonna do a drama about teenager kid growing up, or in this case, sort of a preteen / teen adolescent growing up, it's kind of like the boy version of Eighth Grade. They said on the website. I didn't see the Eighth Grade movie actually, but this would be kind of like that. I'd say it's more similar to Kids though. I haven't seen the other one, so I did see Kids. That's a messed up movie. Yeah, I'm not really sure whether it's Oscar material. It's a little too caught up in itself to be Oscar, but it is very good. Maybe for actor, I guess. The kid that's in it. There's this little boy, and he's maybe 13, and there's an older brother who's like 16 or something. And the mother used to be kind of a hippie sort of character, and but she's not anymore. And the little boy meets this sort of like suburban gang, and they hang out and they go skating all the time, skateboarding. Now there were skaters at my high school back in the day in South San Jose, and they were kind of punkish, I would say. Jerks, yeah. Yeah. So they tended to have that sort of thing. Skating has apparently been around. Skateboarding's been around at least since the late '70s, early '80s. It was a theme in Back to the Future in '85. So, there was a hoverboard and all that. So skateboarding's always been around. This next generation, millennial to post millennials, also do skateboarding. They're skateboarding kids, but we can't skate as much. One of my nephews was a skateboarder. The other one wasn't so much. The younger one is 18 now, and he's sort of he used to skate. I don't know if he still does, but he would be like a skater guy, I guess, a little bit. They threw tricks and stuff and trick videos, and yeah, skater. Not exactly like on Jackass, the TV show, but definitely inspired of that. These characters are like watching the Jackass crew as teenagers, which is kind of kind of fun in the movie. And this I haven't looked up any IMDb on it, but it would appear that the boy character is supposed to be Jonah Hill. Uh, Even though I wonder if he actually skated. But yeah, but it's probably not. It's probably just like a Mary Sue or Gary Stu for him. And there was the only part that's really like kids is the drug use, drinking, and the awkward teenager sex scene, which they don't do like in Kids, and they don't go full on and gross about it. They sort of dim the lights and make it darker, and they're like in the dark. This girl seduces him. She's probably like 6 months older than him, but taller. They apparently frotaged each other. Unlike in Kids, where they like that movie was gross. That movie's like border almost X-rated. Like the uncut version is, I guess. And that one just goes there. That one's not American Pie. Let's say this movie is not a comedy. Either was that one. And it's doubtful that any of the people from the original Kids movie survived that to the 2000s. But in this movie, they probably survived. They probably ended up doing other things. It's like what they said on the most offensive video about the Fat Albert kids would end up working at the TSA or as a server at Denny's. I mean, that kind of thing. But yeah. But so yeah, it was fine. It was okay. The audience was small. The aspect ratio was of the same type as in the 90s with 90s TV movies. So it was not quite 4:3. It was 6:9, but the screen had So there was it's interesting. There was also a skater video at the end. A character called Fourth Grade because of his educational level. He was actually older than them, but what was his name? They were all supposed to be youths, I guess. They didn't really, kind of the jargon for the most part works. I think if they were in like L.A. or something, they might have used a little more Valley talk, but they decided to dial it back. They decided not to include any of the main hit singles from that time period, just because it would throw it off, and it would be funny. They didn't want to make it funny. They wanted to make it a drama. I can see why they didn't use Basket Case. Well, they probably should have, but because that would have made it funny. They didn't want to be. I wanted to be ironic, but not humorous. This is Kal Kat story again. I didn't really close out that review of the 90s, mid-90s. Suffice it to say, it's just a closing. It's fine. It's not quite Oscar worthy. It has acting. Maybe he's not a Mary Sue so much, but kind of. And to be fair, it's not nearly as dark as Kids. That was a very dark movie. Also, it's comparable to not 8th Grade, but another movie called 13. In the same time period, girls, crazy girls who become oversexed. And that also was a movie comparable to Kids. Well, it was not 8th Grade. It was called 13. It was also one of those message movies from the 90s that was like, don't do this, don't become slutty. Kind of like that movie Hardcore was years ago, which I'm sure there were disappointed people that rented that thinking it was going to be some kind of comedy thriller as well. Anyway, it wasn't. It's a psychological dark drama about the porn industry. Not at all any kind of a thriller. This movie is what it is, a treatise on growing up or whatnot, in I'm presuming L.A. or something like that, inner city sort of street kids type of thing. yeah, and the lingo was fine. There probably would have been actually more Valley talk just because it's the Valley, but there wasn't. He's like for sure, like and they're surfers, skaters, so they totally would have talked like that. But no, they didn't. Well, each generation thinks they invented something. And I don't recall the '90s having as many skaters as the '80s did, so it was kind of on the out at that point. Which they did kind of address in the movie that some places they couldn't skate. But it came back in the 2000s, mid 2000s. Yeah, the movie almost doesn't seem to have any anachronisms that I noticed. Didn't really. The only thing that was a little off, and they kind of would have to clean it up a little bit to do that, and they won't. Or the buildings and everything looked really, really ancient because it's 20 years ago. And the stuff they were using for 90s stuff looked like it was saved from the 90s. It would have been new, but, oh well. Anyway, but to them, the shirt was fine. Other than that, yeah, fine movie. It works. Jonah Hill movie. Super bad. Similar. I was thinking on the driving home from the movie this morning when I saw it. There weren't very many people in the theater. I didn't see any of the previews. Got there late. Just saw the opening credits. So there was one. Yeah, there were maybe a dozen of us in the theater. Not that many. And mostly there were people in their mid-30s, grew up in the '90s, and but yeah, no skater teenager guys or anything. I think I probably annoyed the guy next to me because I kept going, "Oh, that's messed up," whenever they did something messed up. But it's just my reaction to some of that stuff in there. But yeah. But yeah, they used they sort of used the jargon of jive hip hop characters. The two of the friends are black in the story. One's sort of a half black. The other guy's fully black. They reference that in the movie, which is cool because that would be like totally like L.A. Valley area. That you totally get that mix there. There's, I remember when, of course, I grew up as a kid in the '80s. Most of in seventh grade at least, there was about half Mexican, and the rest were everyone else, and then there was white guys, but not so much at the private school afterward for most of junior high and all of high school. It was back to being mostly white people. There was some of other ethnicities, but not many. There were 3 black kids the whole school. There were maybe a dozen Mexican kids in the whole school, or some variant. 1 Asian kid. Yeah, almost everyone was white at that high school, but that was different. That was a private school, so. Not that there's anything, but that's just what California demographic was like back then. Then now you get the walk by the junior high around here. We're not in L.A., but it's somewhere in Northern California. You get there's like 2 white kids in the crowd, and the rest are everything else. So as they walk by, on the track or something. But yeah, and the lingo is very similar. So. Can't imagine kids these days enjoying this movie, though. I mean, it's rated R, but if you want to show it to your kid as a message type of thing, sure. Unlike the movie Kids, don't show them that. Or 13, don't show them that. Well, 8th grade's probably the same. But yeah, yeah, this movie's not for the squeamish. It's not for thriller purposes, entertainment purposes, anything like that. It's a be grounded in a reality, a slice of life, as the critics, the Stone Gremlin critics called it. And the Stone Gremlins of L.A. have reviewed Fahrenheit 11/9, and they liked it. They tried to compare it to the Dinesh D'Souza movie, the Hillary movie, and they're not us. It's not Kal Kat. It's not related. No, I've not been on the Stone Gremlin at all. Someday, perhaps. But no. There's no plan for anything like that. Anyway, so... well, if they appear at a convention, they'll likely be in a Kal Kat Show episode, like Nostalgia Critic was over a year ago. So that might happen. It's possible. Someday. They're not doing any conventions around here, but if they do, they'll be in the Kal Kat Show indirectly. Yeah, your movie is the mid-90s. Odd title. Works. The Worry Rock Generation. Yeah, it was this weird sort of era between the generations, in a sense. You had 1985-86 is where the X generation, my generation, officially ends. Putting one of my nephews right at the very end of that. Put it right at the very end of that. So that was over at that point. Because it ties back to 1946, which was the beginning of the boomer era, the baby boomer era. 1966, the beginning of the X generation. I was born in 70. So 86 is the beginning of the millennial, the Y generation, the Y me generation, the Y worry rock generation. And although these kids would have technically been born if they were in the movie 13 to 16, they would have been late X-Gen kids, actually. They would have been born in 82, 83, somewhere around there, and now it's 95. So they would have been late X-Gens, and that's why they were disenfranchised, because it was the beginning of the millennial generation, and they didn't fit in with the younger ones, and they didn't fit in with the older ones, so the transition there is clearly illustrated in the movie. Of course, if I've written a stoner comedy and some other things, and usually when I write a script parody story, I usually make a parody or a horror comedy. My parody ones tend to overweight my horror comedies, and I don't really put the horror comedies out because they're too weird. I put the parodies out, and usually in my stoner comedies, I don't like to do a slice of life reality ending, dark ending film. I'm not going to give any spoilers for this movie, incidentally. You're just going to have to see it. Young Jackass, the movie, basically. Pretty much. But anyway, in my story, it does take on more of a Jackass-like tone in my comedy story scripts that I've written. Stories. I tend to have them not have a moral discovery at the end, where that I don't have the 80s cliche of somebody gets an abortion or something, or somebody gets raped. Oh, no, that doesn't happen. Or that didn't really happen in this movie, but some of the 80s movies, they would do that to be dreary and dark, like The Last American Virgin, or that scene in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, or that scene in, I guess, 8th grade, the 8th grade, the movie. I guess there's a scene that almost is a rape, but not quite. In that one. Also, in Edge of 17, there was an attempted assault in that one. Yeah, so that was very throwback to the 80s in that one. But yeah, I don't do those in my stuff that I've written. Of course, I haven't made any movies about that. But I wouldn't. But if I was making any movies about stoners, I would make it a stoner comedy where the point would be that it ends with them basically where they left off, kind of like Slackers a little bit, kind of like Clerks or something, and the epiphany is that they laugh their asses off in the last act and it's funny. And it just ends with them being funny and being losers. That's the way I would end it, because they're sort of, I would want them to enjoy their loserly lives. Kind of like Superbad a little bit, but more funny, actually. But in the case of this movie, it was slice of life, so they were not being funny at all. It wasn't meant to be funny. I'm sure that, although as I joked, when this comes out on Blu-ray and DVD, they'll probably mislabel it a comedy, and it is not. It is a drama. There's nothing. There aren't any jokes, so it's not a comedy. It's not a dramedy. It's a slice of life, documentary style, mockumentary style, but not funny. There are some scenes that are wisecracky, but they're not like witty, but they're not like haha funny. Most of their sarcastic and snarky very much epitomizes the 90s. That sort of late X-Gen kids that don't fit in the millennial world that's coming. And they're like, what are we going to do? Oh. Yeah. When he rips off his posters and changes them. Yeah. 80s. Yeah. Actually, yeah, these kids would have been, in the movie, would have been, or at least the youngest one would have been born in 81 or 82 in order for that to work. Yeah, so that would have been earlier. Any later, and he'd be too young to be in the movie. Yeah, because he was supposed to be like 13, basically. The girl was supposed to be 14, I guess. I didn't really read the IMDb thing. It's not necessary. Anyway, the hipster skaters, I should say. Skaters were a little older, 14, 15 or so, and the oldest one had a car. So, yeah, that plays in the ending. I won't get that way. But the brother is kind of a douche, the older brother, and he's kind of a wuss. Similar to the dynamic between the younger brother and the older brother in that awful National Lampoon's Vacation reboot remake. Yeah, yeah, the whole idea of snitches get stitches kind of thing. It's like, no, they don't. But the ex-gender people like to say that, but no, they don't. That's assault, and you don't beat on your younger siblings, or vice versa. For snitching, you end up in trouble. You don't do that. So no, they don't. Bullying is not cool, no matter who you are. Yeah, so no tolerance for that. Yeah. Anyway, so the movie's about kids that are gonna be jerks when they grow up, but not like the kids in Kids, the movie, who will end up probably not surviving until 95. I've seen that movie. That movie came out in like 94 or 95. So. Like, gee, yeah, so that was different. Be like this kid be bumming around by the clerk's place or whatever when he's older. In Clerks, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Maybe he was the loser kid who writes to them on the blog, complains about them. Oh, get him! Ew. They could have done that song by Afro Men in there, that They're Going to Get High song. Then it would have been like, well, that song is not actually advocating. It's actually not advocating. It's saying, don't do this, because when you get high, you'll be stupid. It's saying, don't do it. But yeah, the Worry Rock generation, the whole thing, movie stuff. This is not a comedy, just so you know. That's the only spoiler. Drama. Oscar might like it. The aspect ratio is weird, but I think that was to make it look like it's a 90s movie. This one guy filmed. Yeah. Calls himself fourth grade, but actually he's probably the oldest one. He's probably like 17. But he's just kind of special, so he's... yeah. At least they didn't go for actors that were so old they couldn't possibly play the part, although the one older black kid did look kind of like he was a little too old to be like 17 or 18, but that's alright. That works. It's not like Judd Nelson in Breakfast Club was like 24. It's been held back a long time. Or Luke Perry in 90210, which came out in the late 80s, who was 26 in the second season. Or Ralph Macchio, who was the Karate Kid young adult at 23 in the second one. But yeah. But in this movie, they tried to keep them the right age. And yeah, Superbad is Jonah Hill. Yeah. Sure. It's not meant to be a comedy. I don't blame films for not being a comedy. It's just that when the box and the advertisements lie and make it sound like a comedy, then it's annoying. And it's like, no, say your movie's a drama, because confuse people. At least this movie did. This movie did not do that. So I still maintain that the movie The Last American Virgin is really bad. Not because it was falsely advertised as a comedy. That is one of the reasons. Because The Last American Virgin was not a very good movie. It had the point of that movie was like the hero never wins. That's basically the point. And they end up being losers. And he ends up like taking the blame for everything. It's like, that's a sucky movie. At least in this movie, the epiphany works because some shit goes down, something happens, but they take the responsibility for it. So yeah, it's like, okay, yeah, all right, that's different than Last American Virgin. So. Anyway, so yeah, it's kind of reminds me of American Psycho a little bit in places, but only a little. And of course the sequel, which was not 100 Cigarettes. That was similar. 200 Cigarettes was similar as well. But that was college students. What was the sequel? The Laws of Attraction or Rules of Attraction? I always get those mixed up. One of them's a comedy, one of them's not. The one that isn't, Laws of Attraction, is about the brother of the guy from American Psycho, who turns out to be Psycho himself, and sees visions and weird stuff of like suicides and stuff. It's about suicide. It's messed up. It's similar to the Virgin Suicides, the darker movies. That's a dark movie. That was Scorsese's daughter did that one. Virgin Suicides and Lost in Translation, different movie. Also dreary and dark. Yeah, 200 Cigarettes. Yeah, this was similar to 200 Cigarettes too in many ways. Like yeah, kind of. Sure. Yeah. Drama can be cool, so it's not drama. You know, it can be cool. Anyway, that's more of my little rant on the end of the movie because I felt that I did not end my review and I had to continue and go on about the impact of the movie and its like post story credits thing and make it sound a little more like I knew what I was talking about. I was never a skater. Skateboarder, although according to the Stone Gremlins guy, Brad, he could roller skate. I could also roller skate. I could do that. We used to have a roller rink. I wasn't very good, but we used to have a roller rink. Yeah, we used to have roller derby parties and stuff. Of course, the Xanadu song would have to be playing because, of course, it's the 80s, the early 90s. Yeah, so Xanadu. But yeah, and of course, Staying Alive and Roller Derby and all those songs. But yeah, so as I pointed out, I was leaving the theater, talking to somebody leaving the theater. I was all like, I was an 80s kid, so this stuff was like later. but yeah. I was all like, where's the Nirvana and the Green Day in this song? He's all, there was a Nirvana song in there near the end. So, yeah, there was. Yeah, there was a Nirvana song. The part where he's like, that was a Nirvana song. Okay, there's one in there, just one. Well, it's the 90s. They have to have a Nirvana song. Actually, they needed Alanis Morissette, but I think there was an Alanis Morissette song. So they did have one of those. So yeah. Of course, if he was trying to be cool and hip and be a skater, he probably wasn't listening to Alanis Morissette. He was probably listening to like that other stuff that was in the movie. Yeah, he would have been like okay, I'm in junior high and this or that. Sort of been like a little bit later, when they discovered spiky hair coloring and stuff, and then thought it was being original, and they weren't. They went to school and they were all. One of my nephews had that happen, but that was later. That was later in the 2000s. But yeah. Yep. So one of my nephews went to junior high for the first day of school at junior high, and with red spiky hair, thought he would be original. Everybody had spiky hair with different colors. He was very disappointed. In 2000. So. But yeah, there's a whole lot of it. Because they probably all saw each other in the mall afterward. Let's do that. Being an original and not a copy. That's it. No, that's something else. Could go off on a tangent about that, but nobody's going to get it, so I'm not going to. Anyway, that was the mid-90s movie review.